See if I can bang this out really quickly with no script. So today I'm going to be doing kind of first impressions of the Mechanix Impact 3 and a little bit of a comparison with the Mechanix Impact. So real quick, these are gloves that I've been using for 7 months. You can see that they've definitely put in the work, they've put in the time. And just due to certain limitations of this glove, I figured it was time for an upgrade. And I looked and looked for a long time for a YouTube review or a first impression of the Impact 3, and I didn't find anything that I was really satisfied with. But I know that Mechanix makes good products, and I figured I would just take the plunge, and the necessity is the mother of invention. So if you're looking to get a pair of these Impact 3s, hopefully you'll stumble across this, and maybe it'll sway you one way or another. Now I want to start by saying, aside from the actual purchase of these gloves, I am no way exchanging any sort of money. I am not endorsed by, nor am I endorsing Mechanix. They're simply gloves that, you know, I wanted to try these ones out, and I can definitely say positive things about the original Impacts here. So without further ado, let's get into it here. So both of these gloves, I'll say they're in the mid-range of heavy-duty work gloves in terms of pricing. I paid about $45 for these after shipping. I bought them online, and funnily enough, although I bought these off the shelf and they are the older generation, they were actually a little bit more expensive, but that might just have to do with the place that I bought them from. So I just figured I would, let you know about that. So first thing I want to go over in kind of a comparison, when it comes to sizing, since I bought these online, it was a necessity to use the sizing chart, and I ended up being a size large. These feel a little bit snug on my hand, but I don't mind that because they are brand new. When I bought these are extra large. Off the shelf, they felt perfect on my hands, and I did not account for any sort of break-in period. And once they get wet and once they get worn in, these definitely do stretch. The fingertips are definitely at least a good ½ inch past the ends of my fingertips. And that definitely makes a difference when it comes to dexterity and how you interface with whatever you're moving, your rifle, should you be using them for shooting, all sorts of things. So I definitely recommend, whether you buy them off the shelf or you buy them online, use the sizing chart and actually go with the size that, it says you are. So I'm sure these are going to stretch, and I'm hoping by the time that they do, they fit well like a glove, I guess you could say. So first thing I want to say, how many times am I going to say first thing I want to say? I've been using these gloves, like I said, for about 7 months, and when they're around, like they're just slightly sub $50 range. I don't remember exactly what I paid for these. People kind of look at that and they go, 7 months, you'd think you'd get more use out of that. But in reality, gloves are consumable, and it doesn't matter what price point you're paying for them. Gloves are always going to be consumable. And through 7 months of lifting and shouldering and pressing and handling rope, handling steel cable, shooting, touching hot barrels, what have you, mud, snow, sand, water, these have held up remarkably. The fact that they're still wearable after 7 months, let alone like this is the amount of damage that they've really sustained, is quite phenomenal. And I have high hopes for the 3s. There are a few things that have me a little bit nervous when it comes to the reinforcement and padding on the 3s, but only time will tell. I'm not going to be torture testing these for the final review because gloves are gloves, and as long as I have my camera on at the right time to show you what's going on with them, the torture test is going to happen over time anyway. It'll just take some time for me to actually get the footage to get that video out. But all I can say is these have definitely saved my skin a few times, and I am more than happy with the price that I paid for them for how long they have lasted. So just go over a little bit of comparison. In terms of construction, I'd say they're just about even. Every seam and every layer is double stitched. Aside from this welting here at the bottom, but that's not important to the structure of the glove. Every seam, every layer, everything held together is double stitched. Even on the back of the hand here, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows of stitching in total. That obviously is to use to hold down the knuckle padding, but of course it does go to show that it will reinforce the rest of the glove itself. And you know, it carries over to both of the gloves. You can tell that in the development of the Impact 3s, they took all of the good things from the 2s. Or correction, these are the first gen, I believe. Regardless, you can tell that everything that was good about these gloves was considered into going into the 3s, and that's what I really, really like about the 3s so far. I'm not worried about them falling apart at the seams, and I'm sure they'll go the mile. Now, you can see, obviously, they're called impacts, of course, and you can see rubberized material on each glove for, you know, impact resistance and, you know, overall just, you know, protecting your hands a little more than a non-impact resistant glove. You'll see here that these have the knuckles. Now, these are not like any sort of Kevlar, carbon fiber, or resin impregnated nylon. They are rubber. And I will say, you know, obviously they're not the hard knuckle gloves that a lot of people think of when it comes to this style, but that is a good thing, because when I close my hand, I could tell if these were rigid, it would be borderline painful to close my hand, but it's not. It feels snug, and like I said, I'm sure that these will break in over time. You can see, though, that the rubberized material is not extending to the tips of the fingers like they are on the impacts. That can be good for some things, not so good for others. I've noticed that with the impacts, when it comes to certain things, you know, needing to get my fingers into tighter areas or having a little bit more dexterity, that rubberization there definitely has impeded me some. You know, if you like to use your middle finger, for example, to pull the pin on an explodey baseball, that definitely does get caught up, and it's not as easy. I can tell that I will have no problem doing that sort of thing with the 3s. Other than that, like, these have definitely gone a long way in protecting me from some impacts and pinches. I mean, as you can see, just by where the wear and tear is, they chose very good locations to reinforce. I do miss, on the 3s, this extra bit of padding on the heel of the palm. That definitely does go a long way when it comes to pressing overhead, I find. But what I'm glad they got rid of, actually, as a matter of fact, is this extra faux leather pad here in the middle. What I find this did is when I was moving things around, it would move, and it would just kind of lessen my grip on the actual material itself. So I'm not upset that they got rid of that, and instead what they did is they put an extra layer of just the glove material itself. The other good thing about the construction of the 3s compared to the impacts, touchscreen capability. It's definitely useful to not have to take your glove off every time to use a touchscreen, especially in colder environments. And that was something that I noticed these were really, really lacking, and I found, you know, quite annoying just to don and doff my gloves every time. Especially with the sizing. If these ever did work, which occasionally they did for whatever reason, on a touchscreen, where they stretched over time compared to like how they felt for size, I was, you know, not sure exactly where I was poking around. And like I said, that dexterity issue kind of just extends to everything you're doing if you're not sizing the gloves properly. Of course, that was really my bad for not accounting in a break-in period for these ones, but you know, stuff like that happens, and stuff like that is important to take into consideration. Now, of course, when it comes to talking about the rubberized material on the glove itself, there is some impact-resistant material in the middle knuckle of 3 of your 4 fingers. Again, just for dexterity reasons, they're giving you more mobility on your index as a trade-off for impact resistance, and I don't mind that at all. It's the same case for the impacts, your trigger finger, your index finger, like just writing in general, having that little bit of freed up range of motion is, in my opinion, worth it when it comes to this type of glove and the type of work that you are doing. I want to talk about the use case for these gloves as well. It's important to keep in mind, if you're buying these are not cold weather gloves. I have used them successfully down to -15. It takes the bite out of the wind, but they're only really viable for that type of cold weather in a dry environment. Where they're not actually insulated against any type of weather, the heat from your hands will melt snow even in a dry environment, so they will get wet. So if you're going to use them in that type of situation, I would suggest a moisture wicking over glove for these. Like I said, it'll take away the bite from the wind, but they are not made for extreme cold temperatures, and you will notice that for sure. But when you're using them, you know, in kind of temperate or even hot environments, they're great. They're not overly sweaty, even for heavy duty gloves. You don't get that feeling of taking them off and your hands skin has just gotten all soft just from the amount of sweat and moisture that's inside of them. They are breathable, and that is what's really good. So as long as you're using them properly, they'll definitely do the job. And yeah, it's just important to keep in mind that, like, if you use your kit in the parameters that they're specified, your kit will take care of you. And that's definitely the case for the gloves. I'm sure it's going to continue, you know, in the 3s or beyond if they end up coming out with a set of 4s or 5s. Maybe they've perfected them already for what they're used for. We'll have to wait and see, but the review will eventually come out, and you know, I'm going to tell you more about them, how long they last, and if they're worth your money in the long run. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.